In every military family, there are deployments that feel endless, birthdays and holidays missed that can never be recovered, and moments when the person you love most is serving in a dangerous place halfway around the world while you try to maintain normalcy at home. There are children who grow and change while their parent is away, spouses who carry the weight of single parenting while worrying constantly about their loved one's safety, and families who count down the days until reunion while knowing that at any moment, that timeline could change or worse. This is the story of how one military family appeared on Family Feud, believing they were just playing a game to pass time during a difficult deployment. How a surprise that had been planned for weeks brought their deployed soldier home early without their knowledge. And how Steve Harvey found himself in tears along with everyone else who witnessed one of the most joyful and emotionally powerful reunions in television history. A moment that reminded us all why we honor those who serve and the families who sacrifice alongside them. Before we dive into this beautiful story about service, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds of family that survive even the longest separations, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Because what you're about to witness proves that some moments are so pure and joyful that they restore faith in humanity and remind us what truly matters in life. The Rodriguez family from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, walked onto the Family Feud stage in December 2025, carrying the quiet resilience that characterizes military families who have learned to function despite the constant undercurrent of worry and absence that defines their lives. Leading the family was 34-year-old Maria Rodriguez, a physical therapist who worked at the base medical facility, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who'd been managing a household alone for 9 months while her spouse was deployed to a combat zone. Beside her stood her 3 children, 12-year-old Isabella, 9-year-old Marcus, and 6-year-old Sophia, all dressed in their best clothes, all wearing brave smiles that didn't quite hide the sadness in their eyes. Completing the team were Maria's mother Carmen and her sister Alina, both of whom had been providing constant support to Maria and the children during this latest deployment. During the pre-show interviews, Maria talked about her husband's staff, Sergeant Daniel Rodriguez, 36 years old, who was 9 months into a 12-month deployment to an undisclosed location in the Middle East. She spoke with the practiced composure of a military spouse who'd learned to function under constant stress, explaining that Daniel was a combat medic who'd served 3 previous deployments, and that this was his 4th and hopefully final tour before he transitioned to a stateside assignment that would keep him home permanently. Maria talked about how hard the deployment had been on the children, how Isabella had become withdrawn and anxious, how Marcus had been acting out at school, and how little Sophia sometimes forgot what her daddy looked like and had to be shown pictures to remember. She explained that appearing on Family Feud had been her mother Carmen's idea, a way to create a positive distraction during the difficult final months of Daniel's deployment, something fun to look forward to that might lift everyone's spirits and give them happy memories to share with Daniel when he came home in March. What Maria didn't know, what the children didn't know, what none of the Rodriguez family except Carmen and Alina knew, was that this Family Feud appearance wasn't just a distraction. It was an elaborately orchestrated surprise reunion that had been in the planning stages for 6 weeks, coordinated between the show's producers, Daniel's commanding officer, and Carmen, who'd been the secret keeper, ensuring that Maria and the children had no idea what was about to happen. Daniel had actually been scheduled to come home early, his deployment cut short by 3 months as his unit rotated out ahead of schedule. His command had contacted Carmen to arrange the surprise, knowing that military homecomings were precious moments that could be made even more meaningful with creativity and planning. Carmen had reached out to Family Feud's producers with the idea, explaining the situation and asking if there was any way to arrange a surprise reunion on the show. The producers, moved by the family's story and eager to create a moment of joy for a family that had sacrificed so much, had worked with military officials to coordinate every detail. Daniel had arrived back in the United States 3 days earlier, had been staying at a hotel near the studio under strict orders to maintain communications blackout with his family, and was currently backstage at the Family Feud studio, waiting for the moment when he'd be reunited with his wife and children who had no idea he was even in the country. The game started with typical Family Feud energy, though observant viewers might have noticed that Steve Harvey seemed more emotionally engaged than usual with this particular family, that his questions to Maria about her husband were more detailed and heartfelt, and that there was an undercurrent of anticipation among the crew that suggested something special was about to happen. The Rodriguez family played well, the children answering questions enthusiastically, Maria managing to smile despite the obvious weight she was carrying, Carmen and Alina providing steady support. But there was a sadness beneath the fun, a sense that this family was going through the motions of happiness while carrying the burden of separation and worry that 9 months of deployment had created. After the second round, during what would normally be a brief commercial break, Steve called the Rodriguez family to the center of the stage, asking them to gather together because he wanted to talk to them about something important. Maria, holding Sophia's hand with Isabella and Marcus beside her, looked confused but compliant, assuming this was some kind of game show surprise or special announcement. Steve's demeanor shifted from entertainer to something more serious and emotional as he addressed Maria directly. Maria, you've talked about your husband Daniel, about how he's deployed right now and won't be home until March. You've talked about how hard it's been on you and the kids, about how much you miss him, and how you're counting down the days until he comes home. Maria nodded, tears already forming because any mention of Daniel, and his absence was enough to break through her carefully maintained composure. I know this deployment has been really difficult, Steve continued, his own voice thickening with emotion. 9 months is a long time to be away from the people you love, 9 months of missed bedtimes and school events and daily moments that you can never get back. Military families sacrifice in ways that most people never have to understand, and you've been so strong through all of it. He paused, and Maria could see that Steve was fighting his own emotions, which confused her because this seemed like more than typical game show sentiment. But Maria, what if I told you that you don't have to wait until March? What if I told you that your husband isn't halfway around the world right now? Maria's face showed confusion, her brain not quite processing what Steve was suggesting because it didn't make sense. Daniel was deployed. She'd talked to him via video chat just yesterday. He was supposed to be gone for 3 more months. Steve, seeing her confusion, made it clear. Maria, your husband came home early. His deployment ended ahead of schedule and he's been back in the country for 3 days. And right now, at this very moment, he's not in the Middle East. He's backstage and he's about to come out here and surprise you and your children. The words hung in the air for a moment as Maria's brain tried to catch up with what she was hearing, and then understanding crashed over her, her hands flying to her mouth, her legs going weak as the reality sank in. Daniel was here. He was home. He was about to walk out on this stage. Are you ready to see your husband? Steve asked, his own voice breaking with emotion. Maria couldn't speak, could only nod frantically as tears streamed down her face. The children, who'd been processing Steve's words at their own pace, suddenly understood what was happening. Isabella started crying, Marcus was shouting, Dad, Dad's here, and little Sophia was jumping up and down yelling, Daddy, Daddy, with 6-year-old excitement that didn't fully comprehend but knew something wonderful was about to happen. Steve turned toward the wings of the stage and called out, Staff Sergeant Daniel Rodriguez, come on out here and see your family. Daniel Rodriguez walked onto the Family Feud stage in his Army combat uniform, and the moment he appeared, the studio erupted. The audience, who'd been watching this unfold and who'd been told moments before about the surprise reunion, was on their feet cheering and crying. But all of that faded into background noise as Daniel locked eyes with his wife and children. What happened next was one of the most beautiful and emotionally raw moments ever captured on television. The children ran first, Isabella reaching her father before her younger siblings, crashing into him with such force that Daniel stumbled backward, wrapping his arms around his oldest daughter who was sobbing into his chest. Marcus arrived a second later, attaching himself to Daniel's side, and then Sophia was there, and Daniel was on his knees gathering all 3 children into his arms, his own face wet with tears as he held them, and whispered words of love and reassurance that the cameras couldn't pick up, but that everyone watching could feel. Maria stood frozen for a moment, her hands still covering her mouth, her body shaking with the force of emotions too big to contain, relief and joy, and the release of 9 months of constant worry all hitting her at once. Then she was moving, walking, and then running toward her husband, and Daniel looked up from embracing their children to see his wife approaching. He stood, still holding the kids, and Maria crashed into all of them, the entire family wrapped in an embrace that spoke to 9 months of separation, countless worried nights, missed moments and milestones, and the profound relief of being whole again. Steve Harvey stood to the side, tears streaming down his face unashamedly, not even trying to maintain his usual composure. The studio audience was crying, The crew was crying. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something sacred, a moment of pure love and reunion that transcended entertainment and touched something fundamental about human connection and the cost of service. The family held each other for several minutes, the show allowing the moment to unfold naturally without rushing or interrupting. Daniel was saying the children's names over and over, telling them how much he'd missed them, how much he loved them, how proud he was of them for being so strong while he was gone. Maria was holding his face, looking at him like she still couldn't believe he was real, saying, "You're home, you're really home, you're safe," on repeat like a prayer of thanksgiving. The children were all talking at once, telling him about things he'd missed, asking if he was staying, making him promise he wouldn't leave again. When the family finally loosened their embrace slightly, Steve approached with a box of tissues, his own face showing the emotional impact of what he'd just witnessed. "I've been doing television for a long time," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I have never seen anything as beautiful as what just happened here. This is what sacrifice looks like, this is what service means, and this is why we honor military families." He turned to address the studio audience and the cameras. "This family has been separated for 9 months because Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was serving our country in a combat zone, putting his life on the line so that we can live in freedom and safety. And while he was doing that, Maria was home being both mother and father to 3 children, working full-time, managing a household alone, living with constant worry about whether her husband would come home safe. That's the sacrifice we ask of military families, and most of us have no idea what that actually costs." Steve asked Daniel what it felt like to be home, to see his family again after 9 months. Daniel, still holding his children and with his arm around Maria, spoke with the quiet emotion of someone whose feelings were too deep for easy words. "There's no way to describe what it feels like. Every day I was deployed, I thought about this moment, about seeing my wife and kids again, about holding them and knowing they were okay. I've missed so much, birthdays and school events and just regular daily life, and you can never get that time back. So to be here now, to have them in my arms, it's everything." He looked at his children, addressing them directly. "Isabella, Marcus, Sophia, I know it's been hard having me gone. I know Mom's had to do everything by herself, and I know you've been scared sometimes. But I need you to know that every single day I was away, I was thinking about you, carrying your pictures with me, counting down until I could come home to you. You're the reason I do this job, you're what I'm fighting to protect, and I'm so proud of how brave you've been." Maria spoke about what the deployment had been like for her, giving voice to experiences that thousands of military spouses endure but that civilians rarely hear about. "The hardest part isn't just missing him, though that's terrible. It's the constant worry, wondering if every phone call is going to be the one telling you something bad has happened. It's making every decision alone and wishing you had your partner to consult with. It's watching your children struggle with their father's absence and not being able to fix it. It's the loneliness of going to bed alone every night and wondering if he's safe, if he's warm, if he's eating enough." She continued, "And it's the small moments that people don't think about. Daniel missed our anniversary, missed Isabella's dance recital where she had a solo, missed Marcus's first baseball game where he hit a home run, missed Sophia's first day of kindergarten. Those moments happened and they were meaningful, but there was always this shadow over them because the most important person wasn't there to share them with us." Steve asked the children what they wanted to say to their father now that he was home. Isabella, the 12-year-old, spoke with maturity beyond her years. "I'm so happy you're home, Dad. I tried to be brave like you always told me to be, tried to help Mom with my brother and sister, tried to keep doing well in school. But I was scared a lot, scared that something would happen to you and you wouldn't come home. And I'm just so relieved that you're here and you're okay." Marcus, the 9-year-old, spoke with the emotional directness of a child. "I missed you so much, Dad. It's not the same without you here. Mom's great, but she can't throw a baseball like you, and she doesn't know all the same things you know, and I just wanted you to come home. I'm really glad you're back." Sophia, only 6 years old, simply said, "I love you, Daddy, and I don't want you to go away again." Her simple statement, delivered with a child's complete honesty, brought fresh tears to everyone present. Daniel pulled Sophia close and made her a promise. "This was my last deployment, baby girl. From now on, I'll be working at the base nearby, and I'll come home every single night. No more long trips away, no more missing bedtimes. I'll be here." Steve, recognizing that this family needed private time together, but also wanting to honor the moment and its significance, made an announcement. "The Rodriguez family came here thinking they were just playing a game, trying to pass some time during a difficult deployment. Instead, they got their soldier back 3 months early, and they got a reunion that I hope they'll remember for the rest of their lives. We're not going to make you finish the game today. You've got more important things to do, like going home and being a family again. The prize money is yours regardless, because you've already won something way more valuable than anything we could give you." He turned to the audience. "I want everyone here and everyone watching at home to understand something. When we say we support our troops, this is what we're supporting. We're supporting families being torn apart for months or years at a time. We're supporting children growing up with a parent deployed to dangerous places. We're supporting spouses carrying the entire burden of family life alone while worrying constantly. The Rodriguez family represents thousands of military families making these same sacrifices every single day." The show arranged for the family to have private time in a backstage room where they could process the reunion without cameras or audience. As they left the stage, the entire studio gave them a standing ovation, many people crying as they watched this family, finally whole again, walk off together with Daniel carrying Sophia and holding hands with Maria while Isabella and Marcus pressed close to his sides. The footage of the reunion, when it aired 6 weeks later, became one of the most viewed family feud moments in the show's history. The video went viral immediately, shared millions of times across social media platforms, with people from all backgrounds and beliefs finding common ground in the emotional power of the moment. Comments poured in from military families sharing their own reunion stories, from veterans expressing what it felt like to come home to loved ones after deployment, from civilians expressing newfound appreciation for military sacrifice, and from people simply moved by the pure joy and love captured in the Rodriguez family's embrace. The episode sparked important conversations about military families and the sacrifices they make, conversations that extended beyond generic "thank you for your service" platitudes to deeper understanding of what deployment actually costs families. Media outlets interviewed military family advocates, who explained that deployments don't just affect the service member. They affect entire families who endure separation, worry, disrupted routines, and the constant stress of having a loved one in harm's way. Schools and community organizations shared resources for supporting military children, recognizing that kids like Isabella, Marcus, and Sophia often struggle silently with anxiety, sadness, and behavioral changes during parental deployment. Mental health professionals discussed the challenges military spouses face, the higher rates of depression and anxiety among partners of deployed service members, and the importance of community support networks. 3 months after the reunion, Steve Harvey invited the Rodriguez family back for a follow-up segment to show how they were doing and to continue the conversation about military families. They arrived as a complete family this time, Daniel present alongside Maria and the children, all of them noticeably lighter and happier than they'd been during that first appearance. Steve asked them to reflect on the 3 months since the surprise reunion and how life had changed. Maria spoke first about the adjustment of having Daniel home after 9 months of his absence. "It's been wonderful, but also an adjustment. You get into rhythms when you're alone, ways of doing things and managing the household, and having him back means renegotiating those routines and remembering how to be partners instead of me just handling everything alone. But it's a good adjustment, the kind of challenge I'm grateful to have instead of continuing to count down days until he came home." Daniel shared his perspective on reintegration. "Coming home from deployment is always complicated. You've been in this hyper-alert state, living in conditions most people can't imagine, dealing with things you can't talk about, and then suddenly you're supposed to flip a switch and be back to normal domestic life. It takes time to decompress, to feel safe, to reconnect with your family in meaningful ways beyond just being physically present." He explained specific challenges. Simple things like sleeping through the night without waking up on alert, being in crowds without feeling anxious, adjusting to the noise and chaos of kids after months of military routine. All of that takes time. And there's guilt, feeling like I missed so much of my children's lives, knowing Maria carried everything alone for 9 months, wanting to make up for lost time, but recognizing I can't actually get those moments back. The children shared their own experiences of having their father home again. Isabella, the eldest, spoke with thoughtfulness. "It's been amazing having Dad back, but it's also been weird sometimes. We got used to it being just Mom and us kids, and now the family feels different, more complete, but also requiring us all to figure out new dynamics. And I still worry sometimes that he'll have to leave again even though he says he won't." Marcus was more straightforward. "It's just better with Dad home. Mom's great, but Dad plays sports differently, knows different stuff, and it's nice having both parents instead of just one. I hope he never has to deploy again. Sophia simply said, Daddy's home and he tucks me in every night and reads stories, and that makes me happy. Steve asked Daniel about transitioning to his new stateside role and what that meant for the family's future. I'm working as a combat medic instructor now, training the next generation of medics who will deploy. It means I go to work at the base every day and come home every night. No more deployments, no more months away from my family. This was always the plan, to do my deployments and then transition to a teaching role, and I'm grateful it worked out that way. Maria added, knowing he's coming home every night, not having to worry about him being in danger, not having to be both parents simultaneously, it's changed everything for us. We can actually make plans more than a day in advance. We can think about the future in ways we couldn't when deployment cycles dominated our lives. Steve turned the conversation to the broader issue of military families and what communities can do to support them. Daniel spoke from experience. The biggest thing people can do is understand that military families need practical support, not just thanks. When a service member is deployed, the family left behind is often struggling with basic logistics of daily life, single-income household finances, childcare challenges when the remaining parent works, and social isolation when you've had to move frequently for the military and haven't built deep community roots. Maria added specific suggestions. Simple things make a huge difference. When neighbors offered to babysit so I could have a few hours alone, when my coworkers brought meals, when teachers at the kids' school checked in regularly about how they were handling the deployment, those practical supports mattered enormously. Don't just say thank you for your service, ask what you can do to help, and then actually follow through. Carmen and Alina, Maria's mother and sister, spoke about their role in supporting the family during Daniel's deployment. We tried to be present without being intrusive, to help with childcare and household tasks, while respecting that Maria needed to maintain her independence and her role as the parent. It's a delicate balance, wanting to support without making the military spouse feel incompetent or taking over their role. The segment concluded with Daniel and Maria sharing a message for other military families currently dealing with deployment. To families with loved ones currently deployed, we see you, we understand what you're going through, and you're not alone. The days feel endless, the worry is constant, and the burden is heavy, but you're stronger than you think you are. Lean on your support system, take care of yourself so you can take care of your family, and hold on to hope that reunion day will come. 1 year after that surprise reunion on the Family Feud stage, a documentary was produced about military families and the sacrifices they make, using the Rodriguez family story as a central narrative thread. The documentary showed footage from the original reunion, clips from the follow-up interview, and new content filmed with the family showing their daily life 1 year post-deployment. The documentary explored the statistics about military families that many civilians never consider. The average military family moves every 2 to 3 years, making it difficult to build lasting community connections. Approximately 40% of military marriages end in divorce, with deployment stress being a major contributing factor. Military children change schools 6 to 9 times during their K through 12 education. And military spouses face unemployment rates significantly higher than the civilian population due to frequent moves and the challenges of building careers while following their service member partners' assignments. The documentary featured interviews with dozens of other military families sharing their own deployment experiences, reunion stories, and challenges of military life. It showed the strain that repeated deployments place on marriages, the developmental impacts on military children, the financial pressures military families face despite public perception that military pay is adequate, and the mental health challenges both service members and their families deal with during and after deployment. But the documentary also showed the resilience of military families, the strength of bonds forged through shared sacrifice, the deep sense of purpose many military families feel about their service, and the joy of reunions like the one the Rodriguez family experienced. It concluded with a powerful message about the debt civilians owe to military families and the importance of moving beyond platitudes to actual support and understanding. Before we close this beautiful story, I need you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because stories like the Rodriguez families remind us that military service requires sacrifice not just from service members but from entire families. That deployment separates children from parents and spouses from each other in ways that exact real costs, and that the joy of reunion, while powerful and beautiful, doesn't erase the challenges of months or years of separation. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to see it. Comment below about military families in your life or about ways communities can better support families dealing with deployment. And remember that when we say we support our troops, that support must extend to their families who sacrifice alongside them, who endure separations and worry and disrupted lives so that their service member can protect our freedom. The Rodriguez family walked onto a family feud stage, expecting a fun distraction during a difficult deployment, not knowing that in minutes their world would transform from separation to reunion, from 3 more months of counting days to the immediate joy of being together again. The surprise that Steve Harvey and the show's producers orchestrated gave them a reunion they'll remember forever, a moment of pure happiness captured on camera and shared with millions who needed to witness joy and love and the power of family. Staff Sergeant Daniel Rodriguez served his country with honor through 4 deployments, but his service came at a cost to his wife who managed alone, to his children who grew and changed without him, to his family who worried and waited and carried on despite the constant underlying fear. The reunion didn't erase those costs or restore the time they lost, but it marked the end of deployments and the beginning of a new chapter where Daniel comes home every night, where the family can build memories together instead of apart, and where the children can grow up with their father present rather than deployed. Maria Rodriguez showed the strength of military spouses everywhere, carrying the weight of single parenting and household management and constant worry while maintaining a brave face for her children and supporting her husband's service. Her reunion with Daniel, captured in that moment of running into his arms while their children surrounded them, showed the profound relief and joy that comes when the waiting finally ends and the family is whole again. And Steve Harvey, who's witnessed countless emotional moments in his career, found himself in tears along with everyone else, recognizing that some moments transcend entertainment and touch something fundamental about love, sacrifice, and what truly matters in life.